Osu in 2022 has been absolutely insane. It has been a year filled with insane scores, revelations within the community that pushed its limits, and times that tested our overall strength as a community. We have done a lot this year, and looking back at everything we did, we realized that this year was one of the craziest years for Osu in recent memory. Amidst all the chaos, we made it through another year, and I figured, what better way to end the year than to see what we did as a community in 2022. So, in no chronological order, let's dive into it and relive the magic together. Fresh off his return from military service a few months prior, a lot of us wondered if Cookiezi still had the skill to set ridiculous scores. Now, it's safe to say that he hasn't lost his luster one bit. His score that immediately shocked the entire Osu community was his 2 miss on Freedom Dive Endless Dimensions with Hidden Hard Rock. For the first time in 6 years, Shige set his new top play. His new top play was Freedom Dive HDHR. His previous top play was also Freedom Dive HDHR. The craziest part about this play was that he hit all the hard streams and jumps but missed on basically nothing, which cost him a 1000 PP play. After this play was set, we knew that a Shige 1K was in the realm of possibility. But little did we know that this play marked the start of a heartbreaking pattern. We were constantly teased with a 1000 PP play several times this year by Shige, but he always came up painfully short. He could have set a 1k PP play on Troopers of the Storm, Shibatsu, and Endless Dimensions if it weren't for some untimely misses. But none of these chokes compare to this. On Shinko with Hidden Hard Rock, Shige was holding an FC with insane accuracy. But that came to an end when he would drop 2 misses and a slider break in quick succession. Without this blunder, he would have set a 1254 PP play. But instead, we were left with just a 998 PP play. We were 2 PP short of Shige's first 1k PP play, and the fact that he choked a 1.2k PP play does not help with the pain. I'm sure the moment he sets his first 1k, everyone in the community would be so happy. But for now, we have to wait for next year. Hopefully. But this wasn't the first time one of his chokes made the Osu community go crazy. And speaking of making everyone go crazy, there was one map that no one could just FC. Dokito's Yomi Yori. Despite everyone's best efforts, this map still didn't have a single FC. And so to incentivize people to push for the map's first FC, the community at large decided to place a bounty on the score, except that the bounty absolutely got out of control. It started out at just $100, then it quickly turned into $1,100, then $1,500, then $2,227, and finally, the Yomi Yori bounty stood at an astonishing $3,333. This bounty single-handedly turned the Yomi Yori FC into the most sought-after score by top players, and everyone was rushing in to put in attempts to claim their cash prize. However, whether it was the pressure of the bounty or the historical magnitude of the score, the pressure got to everyone in the end, and the $3,000 were just floating in the air waiting to be claimed. This was by far the craziest bounty in Osu history, and somehow, despite all of the tries, it looked like it wasn't going to be claimed for a while. But that all changed when Karcher came in to end it all. Out of nowhere, Karcher set the very first FC on Dokito's Yomi Yori with an incredible 99.6% accuracy to claim the bounty. Or at least, that's what we initially thought. Karcher forgot to record his hand cam for the FC, which meant he was unable to claim the bounty since claiming a bounty requires either a live play or live stream. This historic play was potentially going to be spoiled because of a bitter ending to this insane bounty. But then Karcher did the unthinkable. He turned on his live stream and hand cam, and after just about an hour of trying, he FC'd Yomi Yori again to claim the $3,333 bounty for himself. On a map no one was able to FC for more than 5 years, Karcher did it twice in just 2 days to claim the craziest bounty in Osu history. This took the low price of 2 PP. It's safe to say that everyone thought this was worth it, but this was not the only historic stretch that Karcher broke, because he would do the same at the Osu World Cup. This year's OWC was hyped up to an immense level, and watching it live, we can see why. There was a reverse sweep from Romania, nerve seemed to not exist for Karcher, and Malashevsky became Jesus Christ in Osu player form because he FCs literally any map that he touches. We even had the most bizarre cheating scandal of all time thanks to Fia, or rather, her not actually existing. But by far, the most historical match of the entire tournament was when South Korea defied all odds and took down the United States in the semifinals, ending their 4-year-long winning streak. Karcher and worst HR player were on another level, and the South Korean team went on a magical run to make it to the grand finals in winner's side. However, so long as the US were still in the tournament, they were always a threat to win, and they put on one of the most dominating losers bracket runs in recent memory to win the entire tournament for their 5th OWC title in a row and their 7th in the last 8 years. If there was a world where an OWC crazier than this exists, I'm sure we would all love to see it. And while we're on the topic of historic tournaments, the introduction of the Roundtable absolutely shattered the limits of what the Osu community was capable of. The Roundtable made its debut this summer and quickly established itself as the biggest and craziest Osu LAN tournament of all time. 16 of the world's best players were personally flown over by BTMC himself to compete in this once-in-a-lifetime tournament, and they even managed to fly mrekk over from Australia to Los Angeles. But this wasn't the only event that was taking place that weekend, because the finals of Charlie's Perfect Math Class were also taking place. This was going to be an exhausting weekend for everyone involved in the tournaments, but for everyone watching, we were getting set for possibly the greatest weekend in Osu history. CPMC was the first of these two tournaments to end, and it was capped off by Malashevsky completing his dominant tournament performance throughout the entire tournament to take first place and $4,500. Second place was Chikoni, who went on a massive losers bracket run to make it to the grand finals, and third place was Utami. But we didn't have time to rest as we had to immediately shift gears to the top 8 of the round table. There were some close matches along the way as well as insane finishes, and eventually, the grand final saw Utami going up against mrekk. Ironically, these two were the only ones who competed in CPMC and the round table simultaneously while at LA, which meant that these two were awake for almost the entire day up to that point. And the match they played together was possibly the single most intense grand final Osu has ever seen. The match was close throughout, and of course, there was no better way to end this grand final without the tiebreaker being played. In the end, Utami took first place and was crowned the first knight of the round table. The tournaments on this historic weekend marked a massive leap forward for the Osu competitive scene. CPMC showed that massive content creators were willing to support the Osu community, and the roundtable broke the limits of what was possible in the tournament scene. The atmosphere all around looked very wholesome, and I'm sure everyone is looking forward to Moist Critical's next tournament, as well as the next rendition of the roundtable. But while we're on the topic of BTMC doing things for the Osu community, there were a few other things that he did this year. 3 months prior, it was announced that r/place was going to make its return after 5 years. Back in 2017, the Osu community planned to construct the Osu logo, and they actually succeeded in doing so until Tyler1 decided to foil their plans. This time around, the Osu community was looking to run it back and build the Osu logo yet again, or die trying. A lot of other communities and content creators tried to destroy the Osu logo, but much to their surprise, it would always be repaired at unbelievable speeds. This quickly made the Osu community one of the most hated communities on the canvas, and they became a massive target. But I don't think anyone could have expected the Osu community picking a fight with XQC of all people. BTMC represented the Osu community in a Discord call with XQC, Moist Critical, Ironmouse, and Mitskif, and the Osu community was officially locked into a pixel war against the rest of the world. But despite the numerous raids against the Osu community, we held strong and managed to keep the Osu logo intact. And by the end of r/place, not only did we manage to keep the Osu logo in one piece, the Osu community completed and maintained multiple works of art. Despite being outnumbered, no one was able to take them down because everyone underestimated their sheer willpower. But this was not the only time that their resolve would be tested. A few months later, the Ohio State University Rhythm Games Club would hold a Twitter poll tournament to decide the best rhythm game. We eventually reached the end of this tournament, and it was Osu versus Beat Saber in the Grand Finals bracket reset. One last Twitter poll was going to decide it all, but throughout the poll's duration, Beat Saber always had the lead. This was when the Osu community decided to take drastic measures and call for a movement within the entire player base. BTMC once again hopped on stream to lead this movement, but this time he gathered several reputable members of the Osu community into one Discord server to start the Osu is dying movement to swing the Twitter poll in Osu's favor. This ended up working, and the poll quickly turned into a dead even split in the last moments. The last hour of the poll was filled with tension, and 58,133 votes later, Osu won the Twitter poll. Getting together as a community to contribute to one cause was by far some of the most fun we had this year, even if it was in ridiculous internet wars like this. But sadly, moments like these are few and far between because sometimes we don't get along too nicely. It's a bit of a running joke that the Osu community can't make it 2 weeks without starting a fight, but there has been a lot of chaos that happened within the community this year. There were some things that bothered us, and there were a few things that were far worse than others, but there was an instance of drama that changed the landscape of the Osu community forever. The rise of the Wooting. What started from a tweet calling out speed players quickly made the Wooting keyboard the most sought after keyboard in the entire game. So many people have decided to get the keyboard for themselves, they literally ran out of stock until mid-February of next year. Thanks to a feature known as Rapid Trigger, the actuation point of each switch is essentially eliminated. This aids with stream speed, and with several of the world's fastest players in the game having done incredible things with the keyboard, it's no surprise that many people want the Wooting for themselves. The rise of the Wooting keyboard started a massive fight within the Osu community as some people believed it was a legitimate way to improve their speed, while others thought it was just flat out cheating. Regardless of one's opinions about the keyboard, it's safe to say that it's here to stay for a while, for better or for worse. But that's enough fighting for one time. Let's hang out. After a 3-year absence, Kevo's Osu event finally makes its return in the Netherlands, and it was a perfect opportunity to meet with your favorite top players and content creators in person for the first time. With the revival of Osu's biggest convention, it was a can't-miss event for those willing to have some fun, and I decided to go, which ironically enough, potentially saved my life because I could have been crushed to death by my chimney. Not to mention, I got lost and I had to get saved by Mr. Dutch Boy. But anyways, COE was filled with lots of fun events, and everyone was able to make some lifelong memories and hang out with people just like them. We participated in a lot of events together. We also got to see things like this.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Oh, you can't keep going. You still have 49 seconds.
With the announcement of COE coming back next year, I'm sure a lot of us want to relive the magic of this year, or experience it for the first time next summer. But something happened during COE that everyone was talking about. There was a new PP record. This year, there were 7 different plays that stood as the PP record. At the start of the year, it was mrek's hidden double time FC on the Stellarium remix. This stood as the PP record for the first 6 months of the year, but over that time, it was alluded to that there was a pattern that breaks the PP system. Enter Zane. When this map came out, the game-breaking pattern showed itself, and everyone rushed to farm it. It wasn't long after this map came up when mrekk would set the new PP record with a hidden double time FC worth 1,241 PP. This wasn't really a surprise considering how broken the map was, but no one could have possibly expected a PP record with easy, halftime, and flashlight. Just a month later while COE was going on, Kalanglu set one of the craziest PP records of all time on Because Maybe Part 3 with easy, halftime, and flashlight worth 1,253 PP. Sadly, this wouldn't last for too long because there was a rework that nerfed the Zane jumps as well as ultra long flashlight plays, and so the PP record stood as mrek's 3-mod SS on Team Magma. But soon after, the PP record would break a barrier no one has ever reached before. mrekk broke his own PP record yet another time with his play on Save Me worth 1,322 PP. This was the very first 1.3k PP play in Osu history, and at the same time, it was a 1.6k PP choke. We all thought this score would remain at the top for a long time, but we were immediately proven wrong. aetrna got his hands on the Wooting keyboard, and he turned on his stream for the first time in over a year to set the new PP record with a 3-mod FC on Ascension to Heaven worth 1,357 PP. Once again, we thought that this score wouldn't be beaten for a long time, but in 6 days, mrekk took back the PP record with a hidden double time FC on Marianne worth 1,371 PP. Prior to this, there was not a single 1.3k PP play in the game's history, and now we had 3 of them in just the span of 35 days. The PP record was being tossed around like it was a game of hot potato, and these scores alone made it impossible for all of us to decide what the best score of this year is. But while the best score of the year voting might be hard to determine, the best player of the year voting is fairly obvious. I have lost all the words I can possibly use to describe what mrekk has done this year. He is the person solely responsible for making my videos become outdated in the span of hours, and I'm scared to talk about him because I know that any moment he can be setting a new score. But I guess I haven't learned my lesson because I find myself crazy enough to try and talk about him again. This year alone, mrekk has set 21 1.1k PP plays. There are 40 1.1k PP plays in the entire game, and mrekk set half of them in this year alone. He also set 10 1.2k PP plays this year to bring him to a total of 13, and he set his first 2 1.3k PP plays this year as well. There was a point in time where he had 10 1.2k PP plays while the rest of the world did not even have a single one. At one point, he was the only player with a 1.2k PP play and the only player with a 1.3k PP play simultaneously. He is 18 1k PP plays away from his entire top 100 being filled with nothing but 1ks. He set 3 of the top 5 highest PP plays in the span of just 4 days, and this year alone, he set 20 of the top 30 highest PP plays. mrekk has continued to get further and further ahead of everyone, and as a result, mrekk has officially become the 3rd player in Osu history to hold the #1 ranking for a full calendar year after Cookiezi in 2017 and Whitecat in 2020. Aside from destroying the PP system, mrekk has set historic scores almost every time he turns on the game. A Fake Promise DTFC, a Waldshine DTFC, a Feelin' Sky DTFC, From Undercover DTFC, If You Can't Hang DTFC, and much, much more. It's not just DT scores either. He also has the Hard Rock PP record and the first Hard Rock 1.1k. He is so ridiculous, the only person that can stop him is a literal AI. And sometimes, not even the AI can beat him.
I'm sorry, I can't snake you, mrekk.
And that's 2022 in a nutshell. There were a lot of things that I missed this year. After all, I'm human and I can't possibly remember everything that happened this year, so I encourage you to tell me your favorite moments of 2022 in the comments below. Other content creators are going to put out their own versions of the 2022 Osu recap, so feel free to check those out when they come out. Thank you everyone for a great year, and here's to more shenanigans in 2023. See you next time.